I would like just to start the presentation with few minutes just to refresh our memory about some of the things we covered last week. Last week, basically, I showed some scientific proofs that the Jewish Torah, what the Goyim call the Old Testament, it's no way in the world that it was able to be written by a human being. We covered it from many angles, and I think for those who saw the proofs that I show, they left with no doubts whatsoever. There's many people, which is very normal, they live with the doubts about the Torah, thinking maybe it's a history book, maybe it's a religious book, but was written by some individuals and some rabbis added from their opinions, and it could be a group of them. It could be many theories who really wrote the Bible, the Torah. But after watching this lecture, from experience of more than 12 years, I really never found one person that had anything to answer. Basically, everyone admit that there's no way that a man could have written such a book. It's very simple, because we are showing inside the Torah evidence and knowledge that it's above human, it's divine knowledge. It's a clear indication that a man, as clever as he may be, could be the most genius person ever lived, doesn't have that kind of ability to give us precise information of things that are going to happen 1,000 or 2,000 years later. And he, not just that he did it once or twice, he did it hundreds of times throughout the 24 books of Judaism, starting from Genesis until Songs of Songs, which is the end of the Bible, 24 books, full of prophecies, full of information from nature, which indicates that only the creator of all the fish, of everything that lives in the oceans, someone who knew all their future, knew the way they will be multiplied, knew what they can never be, indication that no man can know, because nobody really able to control the entire oceans. Plus, we spoke about the number of the stars, that the oral Torah, the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, gives us the exact number of the stars, and not only tells us the number of the stars, which was impossible to even believe such a thing 3,317 years ago, it also gives us the way it was created in 12 sections, and each section is a 30 mini section, and 30 and 30 and 30 and 365,000, and the speaker speaking in a language which he leaves no doubt, which means I created, and that means it's not just passing information, just telling us the story of the creation. We have to remember that only 400 years ago, in the time of Galileo Galilei, people started to understand there's more than 6,000 stars. Once he raised his first telescope, then we found out there's more galaxies that we couldn't see without a telescope. But all this information that I showed last week, this was given to us in Mount Sinai 3,317 years ago, and obviously a man was not able to give such information. We also spoke about circumcision. One day in the baby's life, actually in a man's life, there's only one day, only one, that he has extra vitamin K, which vitamin K helps to clog wounds in the body, that we don't lose too much blood and we'll be able to survive. What's in charge of that protection is something that we call vitamin K. And there's one day in a man's life that he has an extra 10% vitamin K. It's only the 8th day of his life. One day of his life. Which shows us that the one who ordered us to do circumcision, Brit Milah, on the 8 days, it wasn't coincidence, because that's the only day that there's extra protection. And obviously this is not human knowledge. This is something above human. Plus, I spoke about the renewal of the moon, which the Torah was able to tell us the minimum exact number, how long is the cycle of the renewal of the moon, 29 days and a half, and 2/3 of the hour, which is 40 minutes, and 73 parts of the minute, gives us to the 10,000th of the second. That's how precise is the number. And remember, this was given in generation. There's no laptops, no computers, no calculators, no NASA, no way to measure what they have today, all this technology. And the Torah was precise, mamash, to the dot. And what the Germans and the Americans found today with billions or maybe perhaps even more of dollars and tens of years of research, we have it in one sentence in our Torah, which leaves us no doubt. No man could have given us the exact number, 29 days and a half and 40 minutes and 73 parts of the minute, which is about 5 or 6 dots after the zero. You know, to the precise number like this, there's no way to know. There's many other proofs, of course. We're going to show some of them. And in other lectures, we're going to talk about different kinds of proofs. Not everything has to be scientific. There's many other ways to prove. I would like to start with another proof, which will take about 5 minutes, and then we're going to start with the slides. One way to prove, if you don't have computer, and you don't have anything on you, and one time your friend challenge you and ask you, listen, can you prove to me now, here, with the Torah in your hand, take the Bible, can you prove to me that this is the book of the creator of the world, or you can only tell me that I have to believe? The answer is yes, it's very possible. It's actually guarantee, if you learn what I'm going to say in the next 5 minutes, that you'll be able to prove to everyone, without any instrument, any computer, any tool, nothing whatsoever. How do you prove? Logically. We know that every person that you approach and you try to convince him to change his lifestyle, not only by 1 or 2 changes, we're talking extreme change from A to Z, mamash, 180 degrees. He is non-religious today, he does not believe in God, he does not believe in religion, he has many doubts about it, and he lives a 100% free life, whatever he feels like he's doing. To take him from that position and move him into become a righteous person that lives by the order of the book, it's a very difficult mission. It's not an easy thing to do. Why it's not easy? Because people look for lazy and convenient life. Nobody is happy with receiving orders and becoming in a way a slave of somebody, which he's going to determine what I'm allowed to do, what I'm not allowed to do. Unless if he recognized 100% that that's his creator that's giving him the orders. Why? Because if we are clever enough, we have to know one thing, that our creator knows what's better for us, better than us. We are the creation and he's the creator, so obviously if I have to go by my instincts or my common sense, and his common sense and his orders contradict my instincts, I will have to believe him and not myself. Make sense so far? Because he knows better than me how I was created. I have no ability to understand my body, my psychology. My creator knows better than me. Most of the people in the world don't even know the purpose of their creation. If a person doesn't know what he was created for, obviously his life has a serious defect, because he cannot explain what he's doing here. That's why his life is a huge mess. He doesn't know what's right, what's wrong, and he has millions and millions of questions of why, and nothing is clear. Nothing is clear. You just have to hope for the good. Comes an entire nation, a Jewish nation, 3,317 years, and they're brought by a person named Moshe Rabbeinu into a mountain around Jordan there. It's called Mount Sinai. Some people believe this is Jabal Musa, that's the place of the mountain today. In Arabic is the mountain of Moshe. And they stand in a once in a lifetime event. Right away the question is, how do I know that that event really took place? Maybe it's another one of the nonsense that somebody decided to write in a book and sell us a story. So question number 1, how do I know if it really happens or not? Question number 2, assume I'm able to prove that it really happened. How do I know that the book is correct? Maybe that part of the book is correct, but how can I prove that everything else is correct? So the answer is very simple. Pay attention. A person that you bring him a book and tell him you have to live by this book, is he happy to receive orders, or he will do everything he can to prove you wrong, that he can be released from you? What's his instinct? He's going to say, yes sir, give me the orders, no problem, I'll follow this book 100%, no question asked. I never found one person that is willing to do it, unless if he's crazy. Every person before he signs a contract asks a million questions. How do I know? Let me check it, let me sleep on it, let me speak to my wife, let me speak to my lawyer. Millions of things until he finally makes up his mind, that's for a little contract. It's not going to bind his life for that. It's only buying a machine or service, $20 a month. He's asking a lot of questions. Why? He's clever. It's not just buying a question mark. Comes to change my entire life and give up so many things I'm used to, I gotta be much more careful. So it will be almost against the odds, all the odds, to come and convince millions of people in one shot, in one day, that everybody will change from A to Z. Doesn't make sense. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is we will have to have some kind of specialty, some kind of power to be able to convince millions of people that this is the book of God. Because if we will try today to do it, you stand on 42nd Street, people will laugh. Another crazy one came to Times Square. Like there's many of them. Nobody will buy it seriously. You know, 1 out of 1,000 maybe will look in the pages and may read some of your material. But to come and say that everyone will see, will believe, it's almost impossible. When a person brings a book, for those who suspect that Moshe brought the Torah and actually he's the one who wrote it, or God never gave the Torah according to their opinion, in that case, what was the incentive of this person, Mr. Moshe ben Amram, Moshe Rabbeinu, that he brought such a complicated book? We have to analyze it now. What was his incentive? Was he trying to gain control over a nation? Supposedly he had it already. And let's assume he didn't have it. He was trying to prove to them that it's somebody special. Coming and giving a nation books of order claiming that God gave it to you. What will be more logical to do? To give them an easy book to follow, or a very, very difficult and complicated book to follow? To give an easy book. Did Moshe give an easy book, or he gave the hardest religion ever been? The hardest one ever been. So that doesn't make sense. Right there we have a problem. Next, as we move on, when a person will write laws and orders, will he make sure that all the laws that he writes will be perfectly understood and make sense and logical in the eyes of human being? Or he will do everything he can to make almost all of his laws weird and unacceptable, and that nobody really have an idea what does it mean? What would he do? He will try to make perfect sense to the public, or he will try to make it so complicated and so weird that nobody would even agree to even listen. What would he do? He will try to make it logical, that the people say, oh, great, makes sense. Everything looks fine. When we read the laws of the Torah, from 613 laws, how many of them make sense? Less than 10%. 90% at least of the laws, hundreds, do not make any sense to humankind. And I can give you many examples. I give 1 or 2 examples. Once a week, once a year, 1 week you have to clean the house to make sure there's no breadcrumbs. Clean, perfect, clean the utensils, the appliances, everything. Not 1 dot of chametz, of breadcrumbs. Who cares about this? What's the idea here? You come to a nation to sell them a book, right? What did you gain by telling them to work so hard and clean their houses that there's not going to be few breadcrumbs on the floor? Did anyone gain anything by that? it's only gonna gain the people, it's only gonna bring the people to rebel against you right away, to think that you're crazy. You don't make any sense with your laws. Where did you get those laws from? Or to get a bird from the nest, set the mother free, and take the eggs. People will tell you you're a cruel leader. We don't want a leader like you. Understand? Take a black box from the cow, from the skin, thousands of different laws, how you make it. Tefillin, put it in this hand and not on that hand. What do you care? What are you trying to tell us? What is this all for? Nobody understands. Circumcise the babies. It's very difficult mitzvah to do. A mother just had a boy. She has to go and make a surgery that she's not interested to make. Risking his life in a way. Blood. Some mothers cannot even attend to the circumcision until today. Can't even hear the baby scream. And the fathers, sometimes they faint when they see such a thing. Doesn't make sense. Almost every mitzvah, all the sacrifices, taking so many goats and sheep and kill them. Why? Because you did ABC. The animal has to suffer. Nobody understands why. The more we dig into it, lulav, arbat aminim, sitting in a soup, none of it makes sense. Yes, you should not kill, make perfect sense. Nobody wants to kill. It makes sense. It's logical. Respecting your parents makes sense. You should not steal, makes sense. You should not speak Lashon Hara, makes sense. It makes problems in a community. Some of those laws, even the Goyim has. Some of them copy it from the Torah, some of them reach the conclusion based on their own common sense, without the Torah, because it's logical. Yet when we dig into the Torah, everything is against us. If Moshe was, chas v'shalom, someone was trying to fool us and give us a phony book that he wrote it, he would have done it completely different. He would give us much less orders. All the orders he would give us would make perfect sense to us. He will be a lot more lenient, and he will get a lot more for himself. Yes, when we search in the Torah, not only Moshe got nothing for himself from the nation, inside the Torah it says that when finally they entered the Holy Land, even real estate he did not give his tribe, the Levites. Moshe was a Levi. Every tribe received a piece of land. Kohanim, Leviim, which is the family of Moshe Rabbeinu, received nothing. Today, every leader in history, check if I'm correct or wrong, every leader in history, as soon as he received the chair and the authority, the first thing his mind is how many billions I'm putting in Switzerland, and how I protect my future and my children, and how do I steal from here and how do I steal from there, how do I help my friends and my brothers and my relatives. Look at Saddam Hussein. Palaces, everything you touch was gold. Why? The money comes, what do I care? The nation is struggling, they're dying. He took care of himself very well. Look at Arafat. Every leader is like this. Everyone. Even in America, Bush. Making trillions of dollars with the oil, with all this. This is the way it's working. Because that's the human nature. Comes the leader of the nation, brings them the book, supposedly he tells them it's from God, and he takes nothing for himself. Doesn't make sense. So we have a lot of questions mark here. Everything against logic. Now comes the best part. What's the best part? Let's assume that we were the audience when this gentleman came and brought us the book. None of us is dumb. We have to assume that the people that were standing there were at least intelligent as us, which most likely they were much more intelligent than us. Why? Every generation is less intelligent than the previous one, and you can prove it all over the world, not only by the Jews. People read less book, the media and all the things that we have today made us not able to think. Even regular math we don't know anymore. Why? Because we got used to press buttons. The time of Maimonides, the time of... You look at the Goyim that used to live 400-500 years ago. Some of the books they wrote. You don't have Goyim like this today. So the world is different today. But let's assume they were just as intelligent as us. Okay? We were standing now and someone is trying to sell us a way of life, telling me to change everything from A to Z. My incentive is to get rid of him. I don't want to be a slave. He's going to tell me what to do, right? So far clear? What do I have to do in order for me to get rid of him? To get his book, give him a chance, fair chance, and start reading it. Between me and my wife and my friends, sitting and reading. All we have to prove that one of the information in that book, it's incorrect, false. One mistake, as I highlight last week, if you remember. One mistake, what would I do? Dance. We caught you, you liar. Here, mistake. You're telling us it's from God? God doesn't make mistakes like this. Right? If you open up the book and see the Twin Towers collapse in Brooklyn, there's any point of continuing believing that this is the book of God? Such a foolish mistake. He made a mistake in the name of the town. Wasn't so familiar with New York. He wrote Brooklyn, or he wrote Uptown. That's all. It's in Manhattan, but uptown instead of downtown. Mistake. Downtown, uptown, it's almost the same. One little mistake, it's proved, it's false. And that will give us the freedom that everyone is searching for. Don't tell me what to do. This is, I think, the most common sentence in the world. Don't tell me what to do. I know what to do. Don't be my boss. Don't boss me around. That's the way we talk. All of a sudden, they read the books. They all say yes. Everything you say will do. Doesn't make sense. When all they have to do is find one mistake. Now remember, this book was given to which people? To the people that the book is speaking about them. Not to their parents. Now we are receiving it from our parents. If my father was the actor in a movie and he passed me a book telling me about his movie, it's not the same way when the book is talking about me. I'm the actor in the book. If I open up the book and the book is speaking about me and him and him and him and everyone and her, everybody, the book is speaking about us. I split the ocean for you. And I took you out of Egypt and I released you from the Egyptians. Yes or not? I know if it happened or not. If I saw a miracle that the water was standing, as the book saying, I have to admit. If not, I take a rock and throw it on his head. End of story. Liar. What are you trying to do? We got to stone him to death. What is he trying to ruin our life? If the book is telling me that I didn't have to change diapers on the babies, we didn't have to clean the clothes, they were growing with us, the clouds were cleaning our body, there were clouds that making the road straight, bread was falling from heaven like popcorn, like snow of bread, people picking it up and eating it, enjoying all the taste, the flavors. All we need is from 100 miracles that I read in front of my eyes, that one of them really never happened to me. All we need, one, never happened to me. What would happen? It would be the end of everything. Right away would say, with all the respect, Mr. Moshe Ben Amram, your attempt failed. Not only it didn't happen, the people confirmed everything that this book say happened to us. How do we know they confirmed? They started to follow all these not clear laws. Nobody really knew what these laws means. The fact that the laws in this book are not human logic. Is it something good or is it something bad? The answer is it's very good. Why? All the other religions which are false religion only gave common sense of human being. That's nothing great. Me and you could have write such a book. What's the difference? In every constitution, United States Constitution, people like me and you sat and wrote the laws. And they argue and they change the law from time to time, right? Comes a book, 90% of the laws nobody even would dream to make. No human being would ever make such weird laws. He would not even have these ideas. Especially when in common sense, in the materialistic world that we live in, this nature, they are not productive at all. What are we gaining by getting rid of the bird and taking the eggs? What are we gaining by cleaning the chametz? What are we gaining taking a black box and put it on our head? We are not gaining anything. What are we gaining sitting inside the sukkah for 8 days here? What are we gaining moving the arbat aminim, the lulav? Perhaps nothing. Unless, if it's a superpower, as he promised in the book, I created the world, and I chose you to be my children, and I'm giving you these laws to benefit you in the end, once you pass my test. That's the words of the Torah. You read it in the text many, many places. Now, once I read such a thing, does it make sense, does it make a difference whether I understand the laws or whether I do not understand the laws? It doesn't make any difference. Even as a robot. All I have to understand that I received this book from my Creator, which created not only me, everything around me. Everything survives and moves based on His order and based on His wish. And He promised me one thing: follow my orders, pass my test, I will reward you in your end. Where is going to be that reward, the book promise? After you leave this world. Once the soul gets out of the body, I'm taking you to a place of eternity, and over there I will reward you forever. Where does it say it in the Torah that the body, it's soul and body, it's not only body? And the death of Rachel. So we're going to read about it very soon in the Torah. And the soul, remember that when you're going to read it in the shul, for those who will read it in the shul, you're going to read, this is the way it's presented in the Torah. Vatetze nefesh Rachel, and the soul of Rachel came out, vatamot Rachel, and only after that she died. So what's the reverse transaction of life? It's the soul leaves the body, and the body falls to the ground and eventually becomes sand. What's the creation transaction? First chapter in the Torah, God blew, first He created the body was unable to move, then He blew into the nostrils of that body something that called a soul, a divine soul, and that's the energy that is inside the body of every person in the world. And that's, by the way, when we come out of the bathroom, we have an obligation to say a blessing. And if you remember the text, that's the movie I showed you before, if you remember the text, a part of the blessing is that the miracle that this energy, spirit, is inside a box that have holes, and energy that you put in a box with holes will come out. Any kind of energy, gas, oxygen, you put it in a box that have many holes, what happened to it? A minute later, it's not there. Here comes this energy into the body, moves everything around, make everything function right, but never disappeared out of the holes of the ear, or the nose, or the mouth, and other holes in the body. You understand? So that's, so far, some words of the Torah. So remember, let's conclude that and we'll start with the slides. Everybody had all the reasons in the world to resist him. They were hoping to find mistakes in a book that will indicate that he's a liar, that they can get rid of him. They read the book 100% from A to Z, and they confirm. They were forced to confirm, because that was the truth, that everything that the book is speaking about them, it's correct. Because all it needs that one of them was not correct, and they put the book with him together in a garbage. And the worst part is that one of the laws that the Torah gave them is that a man cannot touch his aunt. His aunt, the sister of his father, is not permitted to have relation with her. Assume his father is 40 years old and he's 21 years old, and his father has a young sister. She's only 19 years old. His father is 40, he has a young sister. Before the Torah was given, people wanted to marry inside the family, cousins, aunts, uncles, It's very good. Everybody knows everyone. Why not? So what if she's my father's sister? She's young, I'm young. Let's get married. What's the problem? It's no kiddushin yet. It was a different kind of marriage. But we have children. Many, perhaps thousands of people, as the Gemara explains us, were married a woman that was allowed to marry before the Torah, and right now it became forbidden. It's not allowed. These people would be the leaders of the revolution and the rebellions against this Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Nobody wants to lose his children and his wife. Thousands of people screaming. The Gemara says they were screaming when they read the laws of Arayot, of the laws, the sex crimes in the Torah. They started to scream. And yet, with all the tragedy that they had, that they have to get divorced and they cannot touch their loved wife, they still say, everything you told us, we're going to do. Why? One proof, and you don't need more than that. Because the Torah says that when God came to Moshe and told him, go and speak to them and tell them that I sent you, he told him, no, God. Nobody will believe me anyway. They think I'm crazy. Who is going to believe me that you spoke to me here in a bush? Why did Hashem answer him? Say, no, you're right. I'm going to come and speak to you in public around the mountain in front of everyone. And after they hear that I spoke to you, they'll believe in you for eternity. And that's what really happened in the world. Till today, everybody believes in him. The Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, and many other nations. And not only that, when you receive the book that he brings right now from the mountain, and you open it up and you see, and the nation of Israel hearing the voice of God, it's about you. You know, did I hear the voice of God? Yes or no? If I heard the voice of God, the book is not lying. The book telling the truth. That's a proof. I heard the voice of God. Of course, after you hear Moshe speaking to God in front of your eyes, why wouldn't you listen to the laws? You have to be a complete fool to ignore it. You heard, you witnessed the event, and you still have doubts? Of course not. And if he did not speak to God, that will be the end of it. So no matter how you look at that, there's no way out. That's enough, without anything. You saw 10 minutes. Proof like this, nobody, believe me, I spoke to many people and they don't have what to answer. Why? Because there's no answer against it. Let's show some of the other things that can help us to be more convinced. You know, all the materials in the world, especially those who we know from daily life, they expand in a heat and they shrink in a cold weather. Except one material. There's one material that cheats. It does not work according to the laws of physics. What's that material is? The water. Water, when you heat them up, they also expand. And when you freeze them, when you put them in a freezer, they shrink. But only until they reach 4 degrees Celsius. That degrees, which is close to 32 degrees, let's say 36 degrees, 36, 37 in America, that's more or less 4 degrees Celsius. Once they get to that temperature, the more you're trying to cool them, the water changes to the other direction and begins to expand. Up to 4 degrees, what happened to them? They shrink. Once they reach a little bit above freezing temperature, not only they're not continuing to shrink, they're starting to expand, and that's why the ice take more room from the actual water. If you put water inside plastic and they freeze, they crack the plastic with it. Why? They expand. But yet, when you first put it inside the freezer, the colder it got, it was taking less room. Once it reached that 4 degrees red line, it changed and starting to behave against the law of nature. Is it coincidence? Let's see. So, because of that, the ice is always flowing on top of the water. Because of that behaving that I just described. That's what's creating that all the oceans with the ice in the north, they are not freezing every winter. If the water would behave normal, like it's accepted in nature, and they would continue to shrink, once the more you cool them, the more they shrink, all the North Ocean would freeze completely. And what would happen? Once the external layer of the water, the top of the water would freeze, it would sink to the bottom of the ocean. And the next layer on top now will freeze and sink down also. And the next one will sink will freeze and sink, freeze and sink, freeze and sink, until all the ocean will be cement. What would happen? No fish, no sharks, no plants, nothing in the oceans. Then what happened? What would happen? Okay, so we had a world without fish. Nothing in the oceans. Would not be oceans. What would happen? Once the summer would arrive, all these ice will get defrosted and will create such huge flowing of water that will go over the land and destroy the entire world. There was only one way to save the world and to create life on this planet: ordering the water to change their behaving to give us life. You understand? Material behave like a robot, always routine in every other aspect that you go, every field that you check, material behave always the same. There's one material that if he behaved the same that he's supposed to, we wouldn't be here. That's why the Creator made a change in the law. That's one nice example. Then, the amount of oxygen that we have. The amount of oxygen the scientists measured, they checked how much oxygen we have. You have to know one thing. If we would have a little bit more oxygen in the world, you know what would happen to us? Once a person would light a cigarette, it would burn the entire world. The amount of oxygen in the air that we have is 20%. The rest is all kinds of gas, Khankan, I'm not sure the word in English, it's 78%, Oregon 1%, and 0.033 dupachmotzet apachman, and other gas altogether, that's air. But 20% of that is oxygen. If it will be 40% oxygen, you light a cigarette, the whole world will go on fire. If it will be 10% oxygen, everyone will have asthma, cannot breathe. Nobody can walk 100 feet. Why? There's nothing to breathe. It was designed exactly according to the need of the bodies of the people. Can we say it's coincidence? Not only that, the trees in the world, they help or ruins the balance in the oxygen in the world. You know, the more trees you have, they release more oxygen to the air. Now, what would have happened if there would be too many trees in the world? The same thing, the world would be in danger. What would happen if there's not enough tree in the world? What happened? We wouldn't be able to breathe. So the Creator of the world somehow, always with his supervision on a creation, always make sure that we will have more or less the right amount of trees in every area in the world for the people to receive what they need for their living. Interesting. Then, also the animals. The animals balance the amount of oxygen in the air as well. Once they breathe and once they release, that helps us to breathe better. So this creation is so sophisticated that maybe perhaps if you take one species from nature, it will ruin the whole balance here. To say that something like this was able to be created by coincidence, it's not realistic. Then, Something else. What's the temperature on Earth? 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. How much is it in America? 70 to 80 degrees average, something like that. The temperature in this Earth is ideal for the life of the people who were created here and the animals that were created here. You should know there is trillions of stars. Of course, the science did not reach all of them to measure the temperature there. But all the hundreds of stars that they were able to measure the temperature over there, not one of them was suiting the life of a human being. Only the one where the man was created in has the right temperature for human's life. No other star. Some stars have hundreds of degrees below zero. As soon as you come close to there, you become ice before you even enter. And others, the temperature is hundreds of degrees, which means as soon as you step there, you melt. No life over there. One place has the right temperature. Coincidence, the place where all the people were created. Not only that, if you look at the Milky Way, looks like a banana. You look at the order of all the stars of the 9 stars of the Milky Way, you see the Earth is not in the right place. It was supposed to be in the same ratio. If you look at that, look at the encyclopedia. It's like somebody moved it and it's in a weird place. Why? That's the only place it could have been. It shows you that the Creator wanted you to see that nothing was just created like this. It was put over there for a reason. And without that over there, we wouldn't be able to breathe or to live. Some people believe that Torah and science contradict one another. The truth is exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. What most people really don't understand is that there is 2 kinds of science. Objective science and speculative science. Science that based on proofs, it's called objective science, and science that based on assumption, speculation, it's considered to be speculative science. I want to give an example. If you ask the non-religious people in the world, based on their research and their opinions, how old is the Earth? You're going to hear anywhere from 300 trillion years old, they come down as low as 10,000 years. That's all. Some scientists say that the world is only 10,000 years old. When we come to search the words of those scientists, before we even learn the methods and the formulas that they use for the research, before we even go and read their books, before we go one line after the other on the research that they made and their conclusion that they wrote and published, there's a much easier way to prove that they're wrong. What is it? Very simple. If we have one person in a room, his name is Danny, and I ask the public, there's a lot of people, I say, please, each one of you has a mission to write on a piece of paper, how old is Danny? So he wrote 21, he wrote 25, he wrote 30, he wrote 40, he wrote 70, he wrote 1 year old. Everyone has a different age. And all of you claim to be respectable scientists. Each one of you has the pride, and you feel that you minimum Albert Einstein, right? That's what the scientists feel. Look, read in their book, in the introduction to their books. We have a problem here. Is it possible to say that all of you correct in relation to the age of this person, Danny? Is it possible that all of you correct? Of course it's not possible. What could be the best scenario? That perhaps one of you is correct. Perhaps. Even that is not guaranteed. Perhaps all of you were wrong. When I search today in the world, in all the universities, all the main universities in the world, what are they claiming regarding to the age of the world? None of them has the same results of the other. Based on that discovery, does it worth for me to waste a minute from my life to even read the research? If they had the truth over there, they should have come more or less to the same number, with some 1 to 2% differences, 5% differences. If hundreds of universities would come to 10 million years, 10.5 million years, 9.75 million years, no, something has to be correct there. But if one tell me 10,000 years, and across the street there's another university will tell me 300 trillion years, why would I waste my time on that nonsense? So the question is, all we have to understand, how is it possible that they have such huge contradictions? The answer is what I said before, speculations. How can it be speculations? Very simple. They have many ways that they measure the age of the world. One of them called carbon-14. I used to know a lot about it, but over the years it wasn't useful for me. Because really, most intelligent people know that it's all nonsense, and it really doesn't come that often in the lectures. Over the years you forget. But the little I remember is that the carbon-14, it's like a formula that every 673 years it's multiplied in the object. So if you found a bone with X amount of carbon-14 in it, you are able to measure retroactive how old is that object. That's one of the ways that they check. Problem is that if you ask them one-on-one, listen, Mr. Scientist, there's only one problem here. What's the problem? Do you know what was the beginning point of the object? You can tell me now, based on your formula, how long did it took to multiply for this carbon-14 inside the object. But let me ask you a question. How do you know that all objects in a creation were created with the same amount of carbon-14? Of course not. One was created with X amount, one with Y amount. Based on that, you cannot reach the right age of the world. Maybe you'll be able, to know more or less the age of that object, but even that it's not correct. Why? Because you have in your formula missing object. The formula is missing something, and everyone has to assume. One assume A, one assume B, and that's why they comes with completely different results. There's another way, it's called extrapolation. What does it mean? I'll tell you a story. You tell me, it sounds silly, but this is one of the ways they do. A person comes to the doctor and say, "Doctor, please measure my height." So the doctor measures his